Are you glad? Yeah. Welcome to the October 2019 subscription video tasting with my friends Julian. Julian! Woo! Who are you?
So I'm Julian. I've actually worked here before, and I just came back from Tromsø. I've been there for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
I'm a barista at Tim's Bar.
Mm-hmm. And you just got married.
I just got married, yes.
Fantastic.
That's fantastic.
So we both found a woman from Tromsø,
yes.
Which is pretty nice. It's a very nice place, huh?
It is. It's really nice.
And you worked there at Tromsø Kaffebar?
The Tromsø Mat Kaffebar.
Yeah.
So they also had Tim's Coffee. That's also one of the reasons why I worked there.
Yeah. It's one of the best coffee shops in Tromsø.
Yeah, in the north actually.
Yeah. One of them. There are several.
There are several.
But this is very nice. All right, let's just get into tasting coffees, because I think we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
We're going to taste 3 coffees today. 2 are from Ethiopia, and the last one is from Honduras, from our friends Marisabel and Moises.
Nice.
I think you know most of the coffees, but not all of them. And the first coffee, I thought we would brew an aeropress together, because we do get a lot of questions on how to brew aeropress. Although we have a brewing video on YouTube that you can check out, there's some minor details that we forgot to put in there, like water temperature, for instance. So I'll get the water boiling, and then we can start brewing, I guess. So you can maybe explain our normal recipe?
Yeah, sure. So this is also what we do behind the bar at Tim and Bo. So our recipe is, for coffee, we have 14 grams of coffee beans to 200 grams of water.
Yes.
Of hot boiling water.
And we don't do the inverted, we do the traditional.
Yes, we do, as you see on the camera right now, the traditional one, which is quite easy. We don't spill a lot. It's very efficient, very easy to do the same thing, all of us.
So first step we do is to basically rinse the paper filter, and also just to preheat the aeropress a little bit, so that the plunger kind of goes through a little bit more easily, but also to get rid of the paper taste.
Yeah.
And we're pouring boiling water, so as hot as you can. And the reason for that is we have very light roast, so you don't get a lot of bitterness. If you have darker roasts, a lot of people tend to like lower water temperature because you extract less. Yeah. So when you extract less, you get less flavor of the coffee bean. And if it's very dark roast, you get less roasty flavor, of course.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Makes sense for me, at least.
So I pre-ground some coffee, 14 grams, and then we tear the scale. We can put the timer on, and we just pour 200 grams of water in. And we're going to let it sit for how long?
For up to 1 minute.
Yeah.
That's how long.
And now we just stir 3 times, back to front, just to make sure everything is wet. If you stir 2 times or 4 times, it doesn't really matter in the beginning, because you're not really extracting that much. No. There's a lot of gas coming out of the coffee. So when the gas is coming out, the water is not able to kind of go in, if you know what I mean. So it's more important, the stirring at the end, that we are consistent. Because if you stir 5 times at the end or 2 times, the extraction will be very different.
Yeah. So is there, so you say, you pour basically boiling water there, but is there a minimal temperature that you wouldn't go beneath?
It really depends on the coffee. So if you have a very dark roast, I mean, Alan Adler, the inventor of aeropress, was talking about 80 degrees, and a couple of the winners from the World Aeropress Championship have been using water at 80 degrees and won the competition.
Okay, yeah.
But for our light roasts in the bar, we set our boiler to 96 degrees. And because this is a plastic brewing device, it doesn't really steal a lot of temperature. So that's good enough, but just boil the water and pour straight out of the kettle. It's fine. And then the pressing should take about 30 seconds. Yeah. And without kind of forcing it, just lean on it. If it's like 10 seconds, you ground too coarse. And if it takes a minute, you ground way too fine. Yeah. And this is almost the same for every coffee. You know how we kind of change the grind setting for each coffee? Yeah. But the kind of pressing speed is more or less the same. So that's just because the coffees have different densities and so on. This is a very easy coffee to extract, so you can grind quite coarse. So for instance, if I on my home grinder Wilfa grind on, let's say 20 for the aeropress or 15 for my Katuai or something, then I would be on 20 on this. So you go quite a lot coarser and still will have very high extraction and a lot of sweetness. You want to know what the first coffee is?
I really do want to know.
Yes. So
It's probably not from Honduras.
no. So this is Ethiopian coffee from it's not from Jimma, it's from Limuseka, but it's you will fly into Jimma, which is West Ethiopia, and then you drive a couple of hours to Limuseka, and it's nearby a town called Atmago, and the farm's name is Fahem or Fam, like they write there. Ethiopian spelling is quite different because there are many different languages and so on. So Fahem is what it's kind of called here in Europe. And it's a big farm, it's 200 hectares.
Okay.
And it's kind of a semi-forest. Like, there used to be forest there, they've trimmed down a little bit to plant coffee, but they still kept most of it. And they're reforesting as well, so they're planting forest trees. And underneath the canopy, they have planted different varieties that they know the numbers of. So this variety is a mix of 74-1110 and 74-148, I think it is. Yeah. Those varieties are just, coming from the Jimma research station. So we don't really know exactly what it is, but we know that it is these numbers. They taste quite similar, so we decided to just mix them together.
Okay. Because usually you don't mix.
Normally we like to keep varieties separate if you can. And we did separate it and tasted it, but then, we couldn't really tell the difference. So might as well just mix them together. This coffee was actually specifically produced for us. So I went down there with one of the guys who work for Nordic Approach, or the importer that is right above us. And we visited this farm specifically because I've heard about them before. I tasted their coffees before, and they wanted to do something, or they offered to do something like a special preparation for us. So I went to visit in November last year. And they had a really nice setup with 2 different wet mills, and they also produce naturals. They had a lot of nice raised beds. So we decided to make 10 bags of natural, dried under shade, and with a specific recipe on how to do it, with different thickness of the layers during the different period and so on. Yeah. And then the washed one as well, we kind of told them to only pick the ripe cherries, then separate by floating, and then fermenting, and then soaking, and then drying in shade. So, so these coffees are specifically made for us, and I think the results are really good. Of course, logistics made it a little difficult to get the coffees here fast, so they could probably taste even better if we kind of worked that out. But they still taste really fresh and they're really sweet. So, but there's always room for improvement. I'm never happy, as you know.
Yes, I do.
And as always, we cool the coffees down, especially coffees like this.
Yes, just to get the flavor more up front. Oh wow!
What do you think?
I think it's really juicy, actually.
Yeah. Quite different from our previous Ethiopians.
Yes.
Yeah. Any flavor? Can you describe any flavors, or?
Well, I would say I taste a lot of hints of like floral parts.
Yeah, definitely.
But also maybe a bit herbs.
Yeah.
It's very light in the mouthfeel. But also, still so juicy and.
I get, we'll taste it next to the Katuai later, so then it's really easy to pick out a specific fruit flavor, or it's actually a grass flavor, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Rhubarb. You know rhubarb?
Yeah.
I guess it's a kind of a plant. So for all 1 bag subscribers, we'll send out the washed processed coffee from Fahem. That means it's depulped, the cherries are depulped, fermented, soaked, and then dried in shade. So this is kind of the cleanest and lightest one. Yeah. And then, yes, this is the correct one. We'll also send out to the 2 bag subscribers a natural process from the same farm, same varieties. But here is where you just pick the cherries, you take out all the unripes and overripes, and then you dry the cherries on raised beds under shade. So you keep the husk on the cherry. And this was done with under supervision of Semyon Abay, who used to work for 90 Plus, which is quite famous for very clean naturals.
Okay. Yeah.
So I specifically asked him to make a natural that has very, very little of this kind of ferment flavor, but still has kind of slightly peachy flavors. And then you have to be very careful with the drying the first days, keeping it in a very like thin layer, and then after a while you can start to stir and have thick layers.
Like just now it looks like the coffee's darker.
Yeah, a little bit actually.
Yeah.
Might also be the roast. This is a sample roast.
It smells differently as well.
Mm.
Okay, wow.
What do you think, Julian?
Ooh.
Not everyone loves naturals. And I'm also not a natural fan per se, but when they're clean and nice, like this, I think they taste really nice.
Actually, I'm surprised that it feels really clean.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the sweetness of like a red apple.
Yeah.
That's what first comes in mind when I taste this.
You still get a little bit of that maybe strawberry, peachy kind of flavor. So quite similar to the Tatmara that we sent out a couple of months ago. Yeah. But I think this may be a little bit kind of more, I wouldn't say one-dimensional, but more kind of precise on the fruit. Yeah. Whereas the Tatmara is a little bit, sometimes it tastes more like that and other times like that. Yeah. Very sweet, huh?
Mm-hmm. Surprisingly sweet.
So I'm gonna top you up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the two first coffees are from the same farm in Ethiopia, from the farm Fahem. The farmer's name is Muhammad Lalo. He's kind of a businessman, so he has another Muhammad who's actually running the farm. And then he also has an export company. So, I mean, it's a company on this farm, but it's still, we're able to go direct and buy the coffee straight from the farm. This year we bought it through Nordic Approach, and probably will use them or someone else, depending, for helping us with the logistics inside of Ethiopia, because that's kind of the most difficult part when you're small like us. Mm. So we specifically shipped this straight to Norway, and it was only 50 bags. It turned out, not all of the bags were great, so I had to kind of sample each and every single bag just to take out the ones that weren't great. And but the rest tasted really nice, I think. Okay, so the last coffee. I decided, it's October. It's kind of
chilly.
Yeah. So you need some comfort as well, not just fruit and fun.
Yes.
So the third coffee is the classic Katuai variety from the Caballero family, and we sent out 3 varieties a couple of months ago. We sent out SL28, Pacamara, and Ethiopian variety from the Caballeros to our subscribers. But this is their traditional Katuai variety, which, this coffee is all about kind of chocolate comfort. It's a little herbal as well, but, I really like it. And it's a good contrast to these Ethiopian coffees, I think, because it really makes it easy to taste the fruity flavors and then the chocolatey flavors side by side.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah?
Because I was actually asked that question when I was working last weekend, about how you actually first found all these farms.
All the farms, yeah. So Fahem I actually contacted through Nordic Approach, which is the import company above us. And I told Nordic Approach I'm looking for a direct relationship with a farmer or something, a small farm in Ethiopia, because last year they opened up for selling more direct, also for smaller farms. And then they suggested a couple, and then I wanted to focus on the west, not the south, because I kind of enjoy those coffees a little bit more. So then I just went, and they had the perfect setup. So we decided, okay, let's try to produce 50 bags for us, and then see how that goes. And then it's always an evaluation. So I'm going down in next month to visit again and to see if we can continue doing something, or because it's always a two-way thing. So they have to be happy as well, not just me. So if it was a lot of hassle for them, maybe they will say no. I don't know, but we'll see.
And your relationship with the caballeros?
With the caballeros, that goes a long way. So I went to Honduras in 2005 as a judge for the Cup of Excellence.
Okay,
And this was before I had my own company, so I wasn't buying coffees. But that year they came second in the Cup of Excellence. And then later that year I met them in a fair in Trieste, where they had a kind of a blind cupping of the top 10 Cup of Excellence coffees. And I picked up theirs as the best one. And they always remember that because they didn't win the competition. So when I went back to actually be a judge in the Cup of Excellence in 2009, that was 5 years later, then I was looking for potential farmers to work with, and the Cup of Excellence competition happened to be in Markala, their hometown. So I went to their farm, and they're lovely people, so we connected straight away. And ever since we've been buying from them and working closely with them to improve the quality.
Nice.
So let's taste the Caballero coffee.
Please.
And tell me how it tastes like, please.
Oh wow. It's like I go straight to like when I buy a bag of nuts and fruits, like dried fruits and nuts.
It's a great comparison.
That's like the first thing. Really sweet, but also really like the dried fruit just comes up front right away.
Like dried plums, dried raisin. Oh, raisin is dry. Dried grapes. I mean, this is what these coffees are all about. They're like sweet. It's Catuai is like a Brazilian variety, and Brazilian coffees are also the kind of the same flavor profiles.
Yeah, really, really sweet.
And chocolatey. Let's go back to the first one, because now we can really pick out the rhubarb flavor, I think. Yeah.
Oh wow.
For me, that's like, I don't know if everyone knows rhubarb, but it's kind of a weed or a grass that's kind of a thick stem.
It's quite acidic, actually.
Yeah. The leaf is poisonous, but the stem is really acidic, but it has a very particular flavor that's kind of herbal and fruity at the same time. And here in Scandinavia, we kind of very commonly make a soup out of it, or we will make like compote, like we just kind of boil the stems until it becomes almost like a porridge.
Tasted it my first time like a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Normally, as a kid, you will go into a garden and steal them and then dip them in sugar and eat it, because it's so acidic. But it has a very particular flavor, and for me, I love it, and it reminds me of childhood when I taste this flavor. So which one was your favorite? Difficult.
It's always difficult, but this one is always like at the top.
Yeah.
But the washed fan, it really surprised me.
Nice.
I think that's a really, really great coffee.
Yeah.
I just like, I would say the balance between the acidity and the sweetness, even though the sweetness actually comes a bit more up front, I feel. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect it from an Ethiopian, actually.
No, it's kind of not the most typical Ethiopian profile. Normally you get coffees from the south, like Yirga Chefe, Sidamo, and they're a little bit more kind of citric, lemony and jasmine-y, whereas these have a little bit more like kind of red fruits, rhubarb, a little herbal, but in a very nice way, I think.
So this one, actually, and number 2, number 3, not because it's bad, but
it's a natural.
Yeah. Sorry, all natural lovers.
Yeah. But it's really, they are the same coffee, it's just they're from the same batch of picking even, so they're quite different. So 1 bag subscribers will get the washed, 2 bag subscribers will also get the natural from Fahem, and the 3 bag subscribers will get a little piece of chocolate at the end. And as I showed you, I brewed all of these on the aeropress, which really brings out the fruit, I think, because it's a fast extraction, but they're equally delicious on a V60. But make sure that especially for the Fahem, you need to grind it coarser than the cutaway. It's just so much easier to extract these high altitude coffees. Also the natural, you can grind coarser than the cutaway. They shouldn't be bitter, so if they're bitter, grind coarser.
How about the ratio? So I know that you recommend always for 1 liter, you recommend between 65 and 70?
Depends.
Yeah.
So normally V60, I actually normally use 60 grams myself.
Okay,
especially for these Ethiopian, because they just open up a little bit more when they're a little bit more delicate. With the cutaway, I could use maybe a little bit more just to get a little bit more kind of richness, so 65 grams maybe. But 70 grams is more for like French press, aeropress, for the kind of full immersion brews. For filter brews, I'm normally between 60 and 65.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because on aeropress we use 70 per liter.
Yeah. And it's just because it's a full immersion brew, so the theory behind it is that the liquid that's still inside the coffee grounds after a French press or aeropress has the same strength as the liquid you just poured out. Yeah. Whereas with a filter brew, the water that comes out of the filter first is very dark in color, and the last water that drips out is very light in color. So that means the water that's stuck in the grounds doesn't have the same strength. So that's why the calculations are a little bit different. Yeah. And filter brew is a more economic way of brewing because you can use less coffee and get the same kind of results as with the French press. Cool. Have we talked about everything?
I think so, or not everything, but as much as possible.
Yeah.
At this time.
So if you don't subscribe to our coffees but would like to taste these, I mean, you're already too late. But normally we send out some special stuff for our subscribers. The Fahem Natural we don't have a lot of, so we decide, when we have small amounts of coffee, we send out to our subscribers because it's an easy way. We know how much it is every month, and it's also fun to kind of, show our fans some special stuff that we can get our hands on. Sometimes, it can be as little as 100 kilos, and other times, we can buy coffees that are 2,000 kilos. Yeah. So it really depends, but and also...
Will we have the natural in the bar for a moment, or...?
Probably we'll have a little bit, yes, because we do have 10 bags, which is 600 kilos.
Yeah. So come.
Yeah, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment down below. We'll try to answer as good as we can. But for now, boiling water, you don't have to ask the water temperature anymore. So use boiling water for all of our coffees all the time, even for V60 and stuff. We always do that. Cool, thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
See you next month. Bye.
Midten var natural, var ikke det?
Ja, det merker du. Det er den som lukter og smaker hubba bubba. Gjør det?
Ja, jeg sa det faktisk.